Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to Sunday Night Mike. I think I'm going to go with an abbreviated version tonight. I kind of want to get some things out, some of the news, catch you up on what's happened this last week and what I think is going to happen this week. It's going to be a busy week for sports. Today, Sunday, it was kind of a busy day. If you watched the race at Darlington, good to see that sport going. There were no fans in the stands there at Darlington Speedway there in South Carolina. One of the few tracks I really didn't go to. I actually covered NASCAR back in the day for like 15 years. I was a hard card member, and that was something that we would do in the offseason, right? Because you cover college football, and what do you do in June, July, and August? Well, back then you went and covered NASCAR races, especially if you lived in Alabama. You'd go do Talladega, and then you convinced the boss, hey man, I really need to go to Daytona. That's the really big event, and it sure is and sure was. And then from there you go to the Brickyard. But anyway, today was Darlington, so we had real sports going on. I don't know if you saw some of the interviews at the track. They had the guys in the pits with the masks on. Everybody was social distancing as much as they could. And I kind of thought NASCAR would be the sport just because of the nature of it. You know, the drivers are already isolated in their cars. You know, the guys in the pits, most of them wear helmets. It seemed like that would lend itself to social distancing more so than some other sports. But for me, it was just great to see live sports going again. So, precursor to the show, I see we're filling up pretty quick. I got my Lions Honolulu blue on. This is my Matt Stafford shirt. You know, I had this shirt on the other night, a few weeks ago, during the NFL draft because the Detroit Lions drafted DeAndre Swift. And I said, you know what? I can get on board with that. Here's my story with Matt Stafford. So, I got to tell you, I'm doing a 180 on Stafford. I've been convinced that Matt Stafford may not have been the best leader in the NFL. I'll just say it. I did. I wondered about his leadership because the Lions couldn't win the playoff game. But you know what? What I've seen in this offseason from Matt Stafford has really changed my mind. And I think Matt Stafford now, going into year 12 of his career, isn't it hard to believe it's 12 years for Matt Stafford since he was the number one pick in the 2009? This will be Matt Stafford's 12th season. He's coming off a season where he missed 8 games. He had those broken bones in his back. You know, I feel like Matt Stafford probably, I'm not saying this is his last season, but he can probably see the end of the tunnel. And when guys start to see the end of the tunnel, it brings about a different sense of urgency. And I've read now twice and seen video twice of Matt Stafford working out with Isaac Nada and DeAndre Swift, fellow Georgia guys. And I think Matt may realize his legacy. I think he may feel this legacy coming. And the extra work that he was putting in with Swift and Nada earlier this month, back in early May, and now he's in Atlanta. You know, Michigan's on lockdown, so to speak, compared with Georgia, I should say. I shouldn't say, that's not accurate. Michigan's not on lockdown. They're not as open as some of the other states. So Stafford's been working out in Georgia with Swift and Nada and another kid out of Wisconsin. It's an Atlanta kid. His name slips my mind right now. But seeing Matt Stafford put this extra work in, this makes me think like this could be the year for the Lions. You know, Matt Stafford last year, when he was injured, I think the date was November 3rd against the Oakland Raiders. He was diving in, into the end zone. When he was injured, he was actually leading the NFL with like 2,499 yards and was leading the league in passing yards, in completions that were longer than 25 yards. So I thought that was all pretty interesting stuff I wanted to throw out there. I did a story today on Matt Stafford working out more. Some of the things that Matt Stafford said I thought were really interesting, that he talked about DeAndre Swift. He talked about the importance of having more than one back. These are things to me that tell me that Matt Stafford is truly, seriously looking at trying to do some really special things this season. So I'm really excited for Matt Stafford. I'm excited to see these young Georgia football players as a part of his team. I think that's pretty cool. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens there with Matt Stafford. Now, I do believe the Lions, lost their last 8 games without Matt Stafford, just to show you how important this guy really is. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So anyway, Matt Stafford's story. I wanted to get that out there. Now, I want to move ahead. This week, what's going on, right? Okay, well, Tuesday is a big day because the NFL teams are opening up their facilities. Now, they're not letting the players and the coaches go into those facilities yet, but their support personnel are, and they're asking all of their teams for different types of things that they can do to get this resocialization technique taken care of. So the NFL moving forward, even though this is only a baby step, the fact that they're opening up their facilities to me is a big first step for football. College football is going to go to school on what the NFL does. So the fact that the NFL is moving forward, I think that's very important. And that happens on Tuesday. Now, Wednesday, the NCAA is going to vote, I believe, to lift this moratorium on no activity on campus. And that's going to be really important as well. It's the NCAA Division I Council. It's a 40-member council. And they're going to be able to lift that nationwide moratorium on no campus activities. That's an important first step. As that stands, that moratorium runs through May 31st as that stands. Once they lift that, that clears the way for programs to get back on campus. And why is that important? Well, because on Thursday, the SEC presidents are going to vote, and you may have already heard something about this. We reported last week, June 1st or June 15th, will they get these programs back on campus? Now, I don't know whether or not Philip Fulmer was the one SEC AD not to vote for June 1st. There was a report out there. I reached out to Coach Fulmer. He said that's not necessarily true. Look, those votes are supposed to be confidential. To me, it doesn't really matter if there was someone that did, because the official vote doesn't take place until Thursday anyway. And on Thursday, they're going to make a decision. And I don't know if it's going to take a unanimous vote in order for them to move forward, or a simple major majority or majority. So keep an eye out on Friday when they vote for June 1st or June 15th. I see William Gleaton is asking about the Pac-12. No, it's not necessarily done for the year. There's nothing that indicates that. We do know that California, specifically the Los Angeles mayor, has made some comments about group gathering in that city. But I have not seen anything that indicates those. Now, what you saw last week that may have confused you, William, because it confused me too, was that the college, College State University system, which includes like 4 Mountain West Conference teams, they said that they were going to have no students on campus. And so I think we all jumped to the conclusion that maybe Cal and Stanford and UCLA and USC were a part of that. They're not a part of that system. So those are some pretty big things that are coming out. Now, one of the things that I've seen mentioned, and it was mentioned by the NCAA chief medical officer, when we talk about what is it going to be like when these schools get back on campus, this 6-week period, right? We're talking about a 2-week resocialization period, probably with some quarantine activity going on. They're saying that the first 2 weeks, maybe they don't even share football. And I thought, that's a kind of an interesting idea that they won't share football. But if you've got that many guys, it kind of makes sense. I don't know how they'll go about cleaning the football between plays and things like that. That's something that obviously further down the road. But right out of the gate, maybe going 2 weeks without a shared football, I thought that was pretty interesting. Something else that's also very interesting is they're saying that schools want legal protection from COVID-19 lawsuits. So, for example, you bring everybody back on campus and a student gets COVID-19, can they sue the school, saying, hey, this is your fault, you're responsible? Or a football player comes back, So what they're asking for is some type of legal protection. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be filing for that sort of legal protection. Remember, these are uncharted waters. This hasn't happened. This is kind of an unprecedented event here where we talk about moving forward amidst a pandemic like COVID-19. So I think that's pretty interesting. There was a story that ESPN did last week. They talked to Mac Brown. Mac Brown is 68 years old, and we know that there's different age groups with different risk factors. The COVID-19 numbers will tell you that. Obviously, if there's an underlying medical condition, that's something else that's a factor. But when you've got someone 68 years old like Mac Brown, does Mac Brown social distance? And the answer is yes. He says he is working on social distancing. Well, Nick Saban's 68 years old too. And does that mean Nick Saban's going to social? So you wonder how some of the older coaches are going to deal with this. I mean, this is a very real situation for different staff members, maybe team doctors, maybe trainers. You think about this. And one of the things that's happened for Georgia here in the last 2 or 3 years is the Georgia staff has gotten younger. I mean, Jim Chaney is a little bit older guy. Mel Tucker, he's not ancient, but he's older than Dan Lanning certainly. Scott Fountain, a little bit older guy. Sam Pittman in his late 50s. So kind of interesting that the Georgia staff has gotten younger and may not have the social distancing complications or issues that may or may not be in place at other schools. So these are going to be things to kind of look for. A lot of these kind of unintended consequence things that we're going to see come about when college football and football returns. I mean, there's just so many different hurdles and so many different things you got to think about. I want to give you guys a chance to ask some questions here before I go. I see Joseph Kennedy is commenting on Matt Landers. I think Matt Landers, to me, this is a make or break year for Matt Landers at Georgia. I think Matt Landers needs to step up. If you look at Matt, he's a big, strong, physical, fast guy, but he's got to show he's got the hands. That's jugs machine work, okay? That's reps. The good news is you got 3 quarterbacks throwing fastballs now, or 4 really. When you go from Jamie Newman to Dwan Mathis, 2 guys that are here in Athens working out, by the way, and then you have Carson Beck and Stetson Bennett. So a lot of balls there. Joseph, I see there's some people that are trying to be disruptive tonight. It's unfortunate, when that happens. But, sometimes people have issues, and, we do our best to try and understand and help them. So, hopefully they'll be able to get some help and move forward in their lives. But, it can be annoying when people do that. But it doesn't prevent me from talking about all the excitement that we've got here in Georgia. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the BetMGM has already put out some different lines on games for Georgia next season. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm going to go over some of those lines for you here. Let me see if I can find those betting lines for you. And I think you guys will enjoy hearing some. Georgia, I think they put out lines for 6 different games. Thanks for reporting that, Jacob. I appreciate that. Hopefully we'll be able to get the, I guess, what do you call them, a troll again. I think it's people that, they may be really lonely or something, and that's really unfortunate when that happens. But it does happen. Let's see here. So Georgia is a 17.5-point favorite over Virginia. Do you feel good about that? I do. I think they'll cover 17.5 points over Virginia, 17.5 points, whether or not there's fans in the stands or not. I see that Chris is asking me, do I think there'll be a decision on fans in the stands? Chris, no. I think this is going to be something that's going to get decided very late, actually. In fact, Kirby Smart said at the onset of this that he didn't think there would be fans early on, but that maybe later in the season. And that was, Kirby wasn't making a judgment or anything like that. But he did kind of throw that out there. And this was way back. Because remember, the whole key about this thing is it's very fluid. The more information that we have, the better decision we can make. So right now, the priority is how do you get the student athletes on campus in the safest manner possible? I know that they're talking about everybody having tests at their facility, daily tests and things like that. I think that's pretty interesting. Earlier tonight, ESPN did a story on the Major League Baseball protocol. Always pays to pay attention to what these professional sports teams are doing because all these college leaders are doing that, right? There's a lot of medical experts in the world. There's a lot of scientific help, and all these professional sports leagues are going to seek out the best experts in the world on this. So I think this is pretty interesting. There is a 67-page protocol in Major League Baseball right now, and ESPN has that. I have not poured through it, just to let you know, but it is worth noting how detail-oriented this is going to be. And we're talking about Major League Baseball, and I'm not sure. What do they have in the is it 25, 28? I'm not sure how many they have in the dugout. But then contrast that to football, which is a contact sport, when some of these programs have 135 guys when you count the walk-ons. So you can see why it's so much more complicated for college football than it would be for the NBA, than it would be for Major League Baseball, or than it would be for the NFL. But getting back to your question, my thought on the fans in the stands is that's not going to be a priority early on. Now, it is a priority ultimately, but first things first, you got to get the guys on the field playing, and you got to do that in a safe manner. Also, remember, we've talked about the need for students to be on campus. Well, we've got to define what that means. Do they all have to be on campus, all in face-to-face classes? Because what we're hearing right now is a lot of these kids that are going to go back to school may alternate the days that they're in class, and when they're doing the virtual learning, that may be one way to split them up to ensure the social distancing. You may have some classes that go all online and only a few that are in class. Certainly, I would think that for football players, virtual learning would probably be a really good, safe measure this fall. And I would just point to LSU and Joe Burrow. I mean, I don't know if the guy ever even went to class for 2 years. I know they want to retire his jersey. I got called out for questioning that last week. You know, Jacob Hester is a guy I do a lot of radio with, and former LSU great, former NFL player, a guy that I had personally admired, right? And Jacob put that out there, you know, hey, let's retire Joe Burrow's jersey. And I said, what, for like one season? And the LSU people just, you know, and you go, man, Griff, you just seem to bring it on yourself. I didn't mean to. It wasn't meant to be disrespectful. But my thought was, if a guy doesn't sign at the school and doesn't go in a classroom, can you still have your jersey retired? If you're a graduate transfer, I suppose they can do whatever they want. But to me, I personally wouldn't be for that right now. Maybe the game's going to change. Once the whole name, image, likeness thing comes about, the game is going to change, and you know, that might be part of somebody's deal to have their jersey retired. I'm not really sure. Let's see what other questions you guys might have. So tomorrow night, I want to tell you guys, tomorrow night, 7:30, I'm going to be doing 7:30s moving forward on Monday nights. Tom Crean is going to join me for a live interview tomorrow night. I'm going to ask Coach Crean about what his thoughts are on getting guys back on campus and social distancing. You got to think he's been a part of these discussions. I want to ask him about managing Anthony Edwards, the Ant-Man. I want to talk to him about those big wins they had over Tennessee and Memphis, Ole Miss at the end of the year, and what Georgia basketball is going to look like moving forward. Because I know it's not the engine that drives the train, but they set a single-season record for attendance, and I don't know if you've been to the Stag lately, but it was a pretty happening place this last season. So how do they ensure that goes down? I also want to talk to Coach Crane about, you know, he's a member of the Harbaugh family, right? He's married, I believe, to the Harbaugh, Jim and John Harbaugh's sister. I believe that's how it is. Now, Kathy, you didn't join me when I explained the blue. This is Detroit Lions. This is Matt Stafford time. This is me giving credit to Matt Stafford for great leadership. This is me jumping on the Detroit Lions bandwagon with Stafford and Swift and Isaac Nada and Big John Atkins on defense. This is this is in a tribute to Matt Stafford, just to show that I truly have changed course, and I'm behind Matt Stafford. I like the leadership, you know, the donations that him and his wife made to the first responders in Michigan. Man, what a class act. And the more of Matt Stafford that I see and get to know, the more that I really like. So that's why you got the Detroit Lions colors. I had it on a few weeks ago when the Lions drafted DeAndre Swift. And now that I'm seeing Matt Stafford working out with Swift and Nada in Florida, he's in Atlanta. I mean, Stafford has come to Atlanta to work out because Georgia doesn't have the same restrictions that they have in Michigan right now. So that's why I'm wearing the Honolulu blue for my Matt Stafford turnabout. My friends in Michigan are going to go, "You've hated on the Lions your whole life. You can't do it." Wrong. I can change anytime I want. And now I'm going to support the Lions because of Swift, Nada, and Stafford. So too bad. I'm changing my mind. Some more odds on the Georgia games that we didn't get to. Georgia 17.5 over Virginia. How about this? Alabama, a 7.5 point favorite over Georgia on September. It's almost like they're begging you to take Georgia. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in on that. Georgia, a 7.5 point favorite over Auburn on October 10th. Georgia only 3.5 over Florida on October 31st. You know, they're really bullish. If you look at these MGM lines, they're really bullish on the Florida Gators. They really like what Florida's got going. Georgia, 12.5 point favorite over South Carolina. I think that's going to be a blowout. I know on our cover 4 we discussed it. I think Connor feels like that's going to be a closer game. I just look at South Carolina's schedule and think that's going to be a really beat-up team by that stage of the season. And then Georgia 24.5 over Georgia Tech. Now, the game that's missing here, there's no line for Georgia and Tennessee, so I think that's pretty interesting that the odds makers want to wait on that one. So some pretty interesting stuff there. So you got some lines out. Let's take a look here at some of your questions and see what you guys have here. That's right, Nathan Edwards points out that Tennessee and the Masters on November 14th should be a great weekend for TV. William wants to know, other than Alabama, what is Georgia's toughest game? Wow, other than Alabama, Georgia's toughest game would probably be, I'm going to say Auburn. I think Auburn is going to be a tough team. But I like Bo Nix. He's a legacy player. Kathy Green says, what about somebody picking Tennessee to win the East? I don't know who did that. I don't know what writer. It may be a Tennessee writer, but, they've got a lot of momentum right now. The number 2 signing class, but remember they have 21 commitments, and that has a lot to do with it, the way that 24/7 evaluates that. It has everything to do with how many commitments, not necessarily the quality of player. And listen, Tennessee's getting good guys. It's not like they're not getting good guys. I just want to be clear here. It isn't as good as what you see with Georgia and Alabama. And, of course, those two programs right now are waiting longer before they take. As far as the betting lines go, what else do we got here? Nathan Edwards, some surprise depth chart changes based on players not working out during spring break. You bring up a great point, Nathan. I know that a lot of people are saying that this year that there could be an asterisk next to whoever wins the national championship. And I suppose that's true. But to me, that asterisk may end up being a badge of honor. Because now more than ever, these college athletes, these players, are going to have to work out on their own and manage themselves like they never have before. And the program that's able to do that the best, that tells me what type of leadership they have, what type of coaching. So to me, I almost see the team that wins this national championship is even more deserving than others because they didn't have the guidance, because they didn't have the offseason that they typically have. So I think that's pretty interesting when we talk about asterisks. I think we say, yeah, it's an asterisk because these kids are having to work out on their own, push themselves on their own. And to Nathan's question, I do believe that there's going to be some guys that come back in better shape than others. And there could be some depth chart surprises. Now, there's certain guys at Georgia that I'm pretty sure of. I think you would agree, the same ones, the Monty Rices, the Richard LeCounts, the Malik Herrings, the Nolan Smiths, the Trayvon Walkers. Seeing some good video, Jamari Salyer. Saw some good video, Tommy Bush working out, Eric Stokes. Got to think Tyson Campbell's pushing himself. We know that James Cook has had a fantastic offseason, and Kirby Smart mentioned him in the winter drills. So I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of Georgia guys that are going to come back out of shape. I think it's very interesting, though, to keep an eye on that quarterback race. And I also think it's very interesting that both Dwan Mathis and Jamie Newman are in Athens working out together. Now, they can't work out on the campus, but they're allowed to work out together off campus. And the fact that those guys are spending time together working out, I think that's really big for Georgia. I think it's a great sign. I think it shows that there's going to be some really good chemistry in the locker room. And you've seen the Carson Beck video. This kid's got a cannon. He is so talented. It's very exciting to see what's going on here with these Georgia players working out. I think it's really cool that they've been putting their workout videos up. I don't know if you guys saw the Dabo Swinney TikTok video. How many of you saw that? I get it. And listen, I'm a guy that has a lot of respect for Dabo. You guys know that I go back to 1995. I covered Dabo when he was assistant. But the Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock TikTok video with Dabo Swinney, man, I know the Clemson fans love it. But I didn't think. Now, Dabo's a playful guy, so he doesn't care if we laugh at him. But Kirby's not going to do that, okay? Kirby's not going there. That's not a Kirby Smart type of move. Kirby's going to Kirby, and he's not going to do a TikTok video like that. Kirby would rather see you screaming and yelling in the locker room, or Kirby would rather, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say he would rather, but that post-game against Auburn when he said, how about them blanking dogs, that's a Kirby Smart moment. Kirby is an edgy guy, and so I thought that was really cool. and fun, and also the I'm hungry, I want to eat video. I thought that was another one that was pretty funny. To me, that's the Kirby stuff that gets out. One change though that I think Kirby's going to have to make, and that's going to happen next fall, and he may even start it a little bit this season because I think he's got good leadership. I'm not so sure the leadership has been that great the last 2 years. I've begged that question. I've asked that question. But I think he likes his leaders this year. You're going to have to make the freshmen available. Not for the media, okay, and not necessarily because they have anything to say that's that awesome or great. Some of them do. I'm pretty sure N'Kobe Dean could handle an interview, an engineering student. A lot of these guys are pretty bright. But with the name, image, likeness situation coming up now, I think you're going to see that players are going to want to have an opportunity to talk and represent themselves. Also, if you look at how Tennessee's recruiting right now, bring this up too, they allow their assistant coaches to talk. I think Kirby may do a little bit, I could be wrong, but he may do a little bit more with that because especially, the one voice thing, there's no doubt Kirby runs the show. But I feel like Kirby has a lot of trust in Matt Luke. And certainly I know he hired Todd Monken for a reason. And Dan Lanning is another guy, that I think has really, done his magic under Kirby's wing. But I give Lanning credit too. But these are guys, when they've done interviews, I think they've handled them really well. Monken's very experienced with interviews. Lanning has been incredible when he's done interviews. And obviously Matt Luke's been a head coach. So I think that would be good for Georgia. I think Georgia needs to get the message out. I know one of the things that Mel Tucker told me when I interviewed him in California at the national championship game a year and a half ago when it was out there was he was going to have his assistants talk because he says when you're an assistant and you go recruit, it helps if the players know you, right? And so maybe that would help Georgia more on the recruiting trail. Maybe that's given Tennessee an ability to recruit with some of these coaches that they have that are active on Twitter, that are active in interviews and things like that. So kind of interesting there. Let's see what other questions we got here. Trip Davidson makes a great point on James Cook. How many of you were on Friday night when we did the Insiders chat? I hope that some of you guys were able to get into that Insiders. We went and we did a Zoom Insiders room chat, and I want to say we had 80 or 90 people in there where it was just one-on-one question and answer. I really enjoyed that format. We may take a look at doing that again next Friday night. We go Zoom, everybody. You guys are on camera too. So we have our producer, and he looks at everybody in the room, and when you got a question, you raise a hand, and he turns your mic on, and when you talk, the whole room sees you talk. And that was our Friday night Insider chat. That was really cool. Jacob, you were not in there. I'm calling you out, Jacob. No, just kidding, because Jacob O'Neill is like my guy, man. He's on all these. Marshall Fleming was in there. I saw Marshall in there. And he made a really good point in that Zoom chat about how loaded this defense was going to be. Here's Kenneth Wiggins talking a good question and $1 million question. We talked about it the other night. And Kenneth, I'll answer that for you. How much of a new system can you have? Well, Mark Richt, and hopefully you guys got to see the interview that I did with Mark Richt on Thursday. He was really good. Talked about a lot of really special memories that he had. Talked about how he's doing now. But anyway, Mark Richt said that the RPOs are pretty simple to install. So to begin with, you got a pretty simple offense. But I do think that they're going to have to simplify. I'm glad you enjoyed that Zoom there. Kenneth Wiggins looking at the comments on our Facebook Live. Always appreciate the kind of feedback you guys give me here. It's great stuff. But when you've got this many young players that you want to see get on the field, the Jermaine Burtons, the Marcus Rosemes, Robinson, and the young receiver Arian Smith coming in. You want to simplify it so you can get the young talent on the field. So to answer your question, it's going to be a very simple offense, but simple doesn't mean easy to defend, okay? Monken is a master of formation, motions, different things you can do to get the matchups that you want, to confuse the defense. Jamie Newman is an experienced quarterback. He's able to, kind of make the read as the play goes on. I think that's really important as well. So having an experienced quarterback like that, having a great coach like a Todd Monken and a Matt Luke, it may be simple. The whole key, and you all know this, it's all about execution, right? It's all about it. You can know what the other team's going to do, and it doesn't mean a doggone thing if you can't stop it or cover it. Steve Spurrier, his offense was not complicated. Urban Meyer offense was not complicated. But what they had was great players that could out-execute you. And you could put an X there for every O, but if your X doesn't beat that O, you got trouble, man. And when those teams have those kind of players, that kind of speed, those Percy Harvins, that you say, we got a guy schemed. Remember Percy and what he did on the perimeter. Remember those receivers and the way the fun and gun operated. That was what was so key to Florida being a championship program in the 90s. And now that Georgia has been able to put these, back-to-back recruiting classes together, I think you're going to see Georgia with some fantastic offense this season. I don't know how much offense, Kirby's really going to roll with in the fourth quarter if he's up by 2 or 3 touchdowns, particularly with this championship-level defense that he has. But I do believe you're going to see some really special things out of Georgia this coming season. So, I'll put a cap on it there. A lot of news tonight. We talked about what's coming up this week. I'm going to condense a lot of the things that I said. I'm going to put it in an article for the morning. You may want to visit the Dog Nation page right now. There was a lot of articles up. Connor did a really good story on Tommy Bush and Eric Stokes in a workout video that they did. I've got a story up right now on Matthew Stafford. BA's got one of his podcasts up from last week where he's quoting Chris Doring, the former Florida Gator, talking about some of the challenges that Georgia might have with the new staff. So we had a lot of content up on Dog Nation for a Sunday, and we'll have a lot more tomorrow. We're going to do our best to keep up to date with everything moving and shaking, what's going on with college football. This is going to be a very important week in college football's return. A lot's going to be voted on, decided, as they start to figure out how they're going to do this resocialization, kind of go to school off what Major League Baseball is doing, go to school off what the NFL is going to try and do here, and go to school off a lot of these COVID-19 numbers. We're all trying to keep up with that as best as we can. Certainly this pandemic is unprecedented. I hope you all had a really good week. I hope you all had a safe week, a measured week. The heat has arrived, no doubt about it. I'm splitting my walks up into 2 now. Get one in the morning, get one later in the afternoon. My goal is to come out of COVID-19 pandemic on the other side of this thing in better shape than when I went in. And that's a heck of a challenge, because if you're like me, you get locked in your house, boxed in, all this food, I found myself eating a lot more. So I've got to work out a lot more too and take care of myself. That's the most important thing all of you can do right now. Take care of yourselves, take care of your family, be measured, make good decisions. Please take care of yourself. I enjoy doing this chat. We have a great time every time we do it, whether it's a Friday or a Sunday. Remember, tomorrow night, 7:30, we'll have Tom Crean on live. You got questions for him. You got criticisms for him. Here's a guy that's been around. Here's a guy that built a program, Marquette, rebuilt Indiana. Coach Crean has high goals at Georgia, and I'm anxious to talk to him and hear what some of the answers are going to be for the Georgia Bulldogs basketball program. Listen, man, and Antoine wants to know about next Zoom session. That is in the works. I will be talking to my producers about it. We're going to do another Zoom. I promise you that. And as soon as we know when that'll be, I'll let you know. I enjoyed that too, folks. This Dog Nation crowd, man, you guys motivate me to keep going. I promise you, you really do. It means a lot to me. I enjoy this. It keeps my sanity because I don't get out either. So it's just us, man. But when we do Zoom and it's two-way and I can see y'all and hear y'all and not just see the comments, it's even better. So everybody, have a great week. And thanks for joining me tonight. I'll see you again really soon.